Today we'll be talking about Freud's The Future of an Illusion, chapter 5. It'll be on religious dogma. Really important topic, very exciting. Stay tuned. Hello, welcome to Chez Eric, where we talk about psychiatry and religion with a focus on how to apply it to your life. Today, we're going to be talking about chapter 5 of Freud's The Future of an Illusion. If you haven't seen chapters 1 through 4 yet, do that because these topics kind of build on each other. They get pretty complex. And if you have seen the previous ones and you're up to chapter 5 right now, good for you. Congratulations, you made it this far. These topics are really complex. I want you to pat yourself on the back. It was really kind of tough because it's hard to talk about the human mind. It's hard to talk about things, about what could be or what couldn't be. So kudos to you. Congratulations. You should really be grateful and sort of proud of yourself to have gotten this far. We're going to be talking about chapter 5. Before I do that, I want to summarize chapter 4 a little bit. In chapter 4 of Freud's The Future of an Illusion, Freud talks about 3 objections and he kind of opposes them. And he kind of gives a little bit plug for his other work called Totem un Taboo. And he talks about, in that work, he talks about how God and parental relationships are very similar. And because of that, they're more likely, the parental relationship is probably the production of God versus the actual existence of God. But he kind of goes on that topic on a little bit in there. Today, we'll be talking about dogma in chapter 5, and Freud goes into dogma and then into religious dogma specifically. So Freud defines dogma as basically an assertion of some sort that is very highly valued. It's kind of like a principle, something we should all believe in. And if you don't believe in it, then you're ignorant. And if you do believe in it and kind of incorporate it into your life, you'll be enriched in some sort of way. And there are many different types of dogma, religious dogmas, scientific dogmas, political dogmas, all different types of dogmas. So it's not this sort of now thing that only applies to religion, although typically we use the word dogma in religion. He kind of uses the example of the earth being round, and that school children are told that the earth is round, and that's a dogmatic statement. And we can't really fly every single, child to outer space to see that it's, it's round. So instead, we just kind of allow the child to just take it on faith. If they were to ask, how do we know this is true? We might provide them with pictures of the earth. We might provide them with some sort of scientific evidence of some experiment to show that it's round. But by and large, children generally just believe that the earth is round when they are told that the earth is round. However, Freud kind of says, what if we asked for proof for religious dogmas, right? What would happen? And he kind of says that 3 things would happen. There are 3 things that you would get if you were to ask someone for proof about religious dogmas. The first is that we should believe in religious dogmas because our ancestors believed in them. The second thing we might be told is that we believe in religious dogmas because we have proof from the past, like religious texts of some sort, that demonstrate to us that these beliefs are real. And the third thing we might hear from someone when we ask a question about religious dogma is, nope, you're not allowed to ask. It's forbidden for you to ask. Do not ask about religious dogmas. Do not challenge religious dogmas. You are forbidden from challenging religious dogmas. Freud then kind of says these are all kind of really bad reasons to believe in religious dogmas. For the first one, why should we believe in our ancestors who know less than we do right now? We have iPhones and iPads, although he didn't have iPhones and iPads at the time, but the general premise is true. We know more about science and biology and things than we did in the past. How can we trust what they believed and just believe because they believed? It seems a little bit unreasonable. And then for the second thing, he says, these proofs, right? These religious texts and things like that, they're often contradictory or they're revised multiple times, or you need to sort of have interpretations of sorts to understand them. So they can't possibly be sort of proof of themselves. And if you say, they were brought from God, they were from God, you would kind of have to say, well, that's not fair because you can't use the document itself as proof of its own self. So Freud would say that doesn't really count. And for the third one, he gets really angry. It's like, you can't tell me to not ask you questions. The fact that you're forbidding me from asking questions tells me I should be really suspicious of you. So then, that's the thing, that he doesn't like these sort of proofs of religious dogmas. But he kind of points out that this has always been known, that religious beliefs, religious dogmas have been difficult to prove. It's always been that case. And so we've had people in the past like question this, or when people question it, they get tortured, or we've always known that it's hard to prove. And so there are two ways in which people have then taken on this difficulty with proof. The first way is that people would say the religious beliefs they're not subject to reason, that instead you have to understand them on a personal level and with personal experiences to truly understand what they're about. With that, Freud would say, well, that's not very fair. I can't use your personal experience as my evidence for the truth of the religious dogmas. That's not very fair. And then the second things people would typically say, knowing that religious dogmas are difficult to prove, they would simply say, well, just take them as they are. Take them as fact, right? They benefit society in some way. They benefit, the world in some way. They have a positive effect. Just take them as they are and just let them be, right? With that, Freud would simply say, or he did say, that, well, that's not very fair either. We have reason. We are reasonable human beings. We have our brains. We should use them. And furthermore, why should we have a lower standard of truth for something as important as the existence of God and eternal damnation or eternal life and things like that? If anything, we should have a higher standard of proof, which we don't seem to be doing. Freud recognizes the nature of dogma, and he outlines the nature of dogma as what I just described. But in doing so, he kind of points out that we believe in them for some other reason. And he kind of says, why do religious dogmas have so much strength that they can't even be refuted, that we kind of hold on to them and cling on to them, even though other things, let's say the earth being round, if we found evidence that it wasn't, we would just like throw out the previous one and just add the new one. And then he says he will talk about that in chapter 6. Dun, 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 a little foreshadowing for the future. There's a lot in there to pack in. There's a lot in there to absorb and take in. And I kind of wanted to, I want to talk about the three things, the present-day proof and other things like that, and proofs and everything. But instead, I want to talk about dogma on its own. I am a religious person. I find myself to be religious. And I personally hate dogma. I hate being told what to believe and then said, oh, you can't challenge it at all. That's very silly. It's like, that makes no sense to me, right? But I also kind of feel sad when people ascribe dogma to only religious things, because dogma, the nature of not being able to challenge stuff, exists everywhere. It exists in politics. It even exists in science, right? It exists in like many areas of human existence, human reasoning, because that's just how humans are. I would say that dogma is actually a quality of humanity, not really a quality of religiousness, all right? And this is the reason why. This is where the psychiatry kind of comes into play. We have limited human minds, and using reason actually uses a lot of mental resources, okay? It takes a lot of effort to have a question, investigate the facts, collect the facts, hold off on any conclusions, analyze the facts, and then come up with the conclusion, and then share the conclusion with other people who may have other facts, and then figure out an overall truth of it, okay? In our everyday life, we run into a lot of facts, and we do not have time to go through all of them with such intention and vigor. And as a result, we have to prioritize what we're willing to investigate and what we're not willing to investigate, right? The fact that, let's say, Coca-Cola is healthy for you or not healthy for you, right? It's hard to investigate all the facts of, how much Coca-Cola you can drink, whether or not it's healthy for you or not healthy for you. And, or maybe like, big one is barefoot running. Is barefoot running good for you, not good for you? People just wear shoes. They just wear shoes. They don't want to care about whether it's barefoot or not. It's so confusing, right? And they don't even have the full sort of information on everything. And you have people who love barefoot running and people who hate barefoot running, and it's really, really confusing. And ask yourself, in this world, how many people would put religion or a belief in God or understanding God as a high enough priority that they need to investigate the truth with absolute and full sort of intention and effort, right? I would say a very small percentage. Why do I say that? Because the search engine optimizations that I research all the time to give you the best content tells me that not many people are asking questions about religiosity or about psychiatry, or about things like this, okay? And if a small portion of people are actually asking these really hard questions, then how many of them are actually in the church? because the church is, most people are religious. So therefore, there must be a large majority of people who don't actually prioritize an understanding of God and pursuing the truth of whether or not God exists and the nature of God and all those things. But those are the same people who are promoting and advocating for religion, advocating for God, and all they have is the dogma. And that's why we have these really weird situations where religion is just dogmatic and you don't have answers that you're seeking out. So what do you do? Right? Very frustrating. What can you take away from this? Well, for today, I'd like just for you to take away one small thing. I would like for you to just take some time to think about yourself, think about what you personally prioritize, what you personally have spent time in the past to investigate the truth of something. And then ask yourself, where is religion in this, right? How much time do I really devote to it? There's nothing wrong with putting it in a lower area, just recognize it, all right? And it's not so much a pursuit of whether or not Freud is right or whether God is true or not. It's actually, I would say, a pursuit of yourself, that you want to understand yourself. What do you prioritize? What do you spend investigating? What do you spend time to understand the truth of? To the dogmas, the truth of the dogmas that you understand. By understanding that, you know where you are in your life and you know where maybe you would want to be and understand how you're prioritizing things. And in doing that, your life becomes enriched because you understand yourself better. So that's a big takeaway for today. Oh, I really wish I could have talked about the other things, but not enough time. Maybe another time. If you really want it, let me know in the comments. If any of this was confusing, let me know in the comments. Do like and subscribe and hit the notification button. And I'll see you next time. Bye. Hello. You're probably wondering about my hand, right? I cut myself on really dry paper because I was doing spring cleaning. Well, it's not spring now because I'm probably posting this in the summer, but I was doing cleaning and I cut my hand on dry paper. It's really hard. It's really hurts. So I'm using my hands a lot. So I figured I'd explain, or else you'd be wondering, why is it a Band-Aid? It's kind of weird. Other thing you might have noticed, I said Chez Eric, Psychiatry, Religion, and Life. That means that I got I got the first step of the trademark application done, and then I have to wait a couple of months. Maybe it'll be finally done by the end of the time this video is posted. But it's in a way, I could say Chez Eric in every single video. I don't have to say this channel. It was so annoying when I said this channel over and over again. Anyway, so thank you very much for your support. I hope you're enjoying this series. I'm going to go all the way through to chapter 10. Do let me know in the comments below what you think. All right. I'll see you next time. Bye.